know Baskerville, and as I have a story from my own father, who also had it from his, I have it set down with all belief that it occurred even as is set forth.
He's still not back, Lady Agatha. No sign of him from the upstairs window either.
You shouldn't have allowed him to go, Perkins.
It's not my place to stop Sir Henry if he wishes to go out.
He doesn't know the moor as we do. You know how treacherous it can be.
Indeed, I do, ma'am. Only yesterday, another pony went under the mud at Griffin Mire.
A false step there is sure death.
Anyhow, Barrymore's gone to fetch him back.
Good. I'm expecting a Dr. Watson and a Mr. Holmes shortly. Show them in a minute they arrive.
I will, ma'am. Will you be wanting tea?
Yes, for 4. Sir Henry will be joining us, I trust.
Ah, there you are, Lady Agatha. Not late, am I?
You'll never know how thankful I am for your presence, Watson. Where is Mr. Holmes?
He'll be along shortly.
I've arranged for tea.
I hope you won't take offense, but you seem distraught. Not like you at all. There's one thing I'll always remember about our days together at the hospital. Nerves of steel and a disposition to match.
Thank you, Watson. I appreciate that. To tell the truth, I have been on edge, desperate, some might say.
Desperate?
When I heard you and Mr. Holmes were on holiday nearby, I wasted no time getting in touch.
Not exactly a holiday. Holmes has always been fascinated by the grim charm of this locale, especially the traces of the prehistoric people who lived here.
You mean the stone huts dotting the moor? They do give one the feeling of another time.
Downright creepy, if you ask me.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a skin-clad, hairy man crawl out from one of those huts.
Doing what?
Fitting his flint-tipped arrow on the string of his bow.
I'm not given much to flights of fancy. Imagination is more in Holmes's line.
I'm looking forward to meeting him.
And so you shall, Lady Agatha.
It's a very great pleasure for me, Mr. Holmes.
Kind of you to say. I trust you enjoyed your walk around the excavations at Griffin Mire. The south section, I believe.
How do you know I've been there?
You left your walking stick outside. The tip is coated in a reddish clay that is only found in that area.
You live up to your reputation.
Judging from the consistency of the clay, you were there within the last 3 hours.
Bravo!
I would be cautious if you take your schnauzer there. They have a tendency to move impulsively. Miniature, I should imagine.
How do you know I even have a dog?
Teeth marks on the walking stick. Obviously, the dog is in the habit of carrying it from time to time. The jaw, as indicated by the space between the marks, is not large. That and this puff of silver-grey dog fur leads me to surmise a miniature schnauzer.
You really are an automaton, Holmes. Machine. There's something positively inhuman about you at times.
You take my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
Elementary.
You said you needed our help.
I do.
Does your request, in some way, concern itself with the recent demise of Sir Charles Baskervilles?
It does?
London paper said it was a heart attack.
An elderly gentleman, if I recall correctly.
Over 80.
You suspect foul play.
What makes you say that?
You would hardly have called upon my services if the situation were not grave.
I have always considered myself a rational woman. Watson can vouch for that.
Absolutely.
I've never taken the occult seriously.
The occult.
Perhaps this will explain.
Early 18th century, unless it is a forgery.
It is no forgery.
What is it?
I'm not unfamiliar with the contents. It purports to describe the origin of the curse of the Baskervilles.
Curse?
Come, come, Watson. Common knowledge.
Maybe common knowledge to you, but not to me.
Well, the exact date is 1742. Sir Hugo Baskerville was a villain, a coarse man, given to excesses of intemperance and rage. He came to love, if that's a word that can be used with his sort, a village girl. He kidnapped her, kept her prisoner in this house, while night after night he and his foul companions reveled below, probably in this very room.
He has much to answer for.
One night, with the aid of a stout ivy outside her window, she made her escape.
Good for her.
There's more to it than that was. Sir Hugo gave chase onto the moor, his companions in drink riding at his heels. He outdistanced them. Sir Hugo's companions found him in the moor on two great stones.
You could see them from the windows. They marked the door to some long-forgotten temple.
I have seen them, frightening things in the moonlight.
When they came on the spot, the village girl had expired, fallen dead of fear and fatigue.
And Sir Hugo?
He was by her side, also dead. But that wasn't what terrified the friends that found him.
What did?
Read it yourself.
And plucking at his throat, there stood a foul thing, a great black beast, shaped like a hound, yet larger than any hound that ever mortal eye has rested upon. And even as they looked, the thing tore the throat out of Hugo Baskerville.
Many of the family have been unhappy in their death. Sudden, bloody, mysterious.
But surely you don't believe this mumbo-jumbo?
It is obvious the Baskerville who wrote the account did. I counsel you, by way of caution, to forbear from crossing the moor in those dark hours when the powers of evil are exalted.
Powers of evil, indeed. It's a fairy tale.
Sir Charles believed in the curse.
As I recall, Sir Charles was only in residence for a few years.
That is correct. His business interests, mainly those in South Africa, kept him away.
Who looked after Baskerville Hall?
The Barrymores, a married couple. He acts as butler, she as housekeeper.
Still in service here?
Oh yes, it was Barrymore who found the body. It was Sir Charles's habit each night to take a walk before retiring.
But never onto the moor.
Never.
Because of that silly legend?
Watson, please, do continue, Lady Agatha.
On the night of his death, he went out as usual. He never returned.
No sign of violence on the body?
None.
At his advanced stage, he probably passed on from cardiac exhaustion.
Exactly.
Who performed the police autopsy?
I did.
And the coroner's jury accepted the medical evidence.
There was no reason not to.
Lady Agatha, it is not what you are saying that I find of interest. Rather, it is what you are not saying.
If you weren't a private investigator, Mr. Holmes, I would suspect you of being a psychic.
Why not come directly to the point?
I believe Sir Charles was frightened to death.
Proof.
Within the last few months, it became increasingly plain to me that Sir Charles' nervous system was strained to the breaking point.
I asked for proof. Facts.
The expression on his face was one of sheer terror.
Easily explained by muscle spasm.
There was one false statement made by Barrymore at the inquest.
Oh?
He said that there were no tracks on the ground round the body.
You said a false statement.
Perhaps Barrymore didn't see what I saw.
Which was?
My motive for withholding it from the coroner's inquiry is that a person of science shrinks from placing oneself in the position of seeming to endorse a popular superstition.
In other words, you did see footprints.
Yes, a distance off, but fresh and clear.
But why conceal the fact?
I have already explained my reason.
The footprints, a man's or a woman's?
They were the footprints of a gigantic hound.
Lady Agatha. It's Sir Henry. I saw him from upstairs, and he's cutting across the moor now.
Thank heaven.
You're the housekeeper, I take it.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Barrymore.
How long have you been in service at Baskerville Hall?
It's quite all right, Mrs. Barrymore. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
I've been in service here for most of my life.
Then you know the moor.
I grew up on the moor, Mr. Holmes.
Why, Mr. and Mrs. Barrymore know more about Baskerville Hall than anyone in the county.
If you have no further questions, I'll see to my duties.
I have no further questions at this time. Remarkable woman. Reminds me of Amy Small, the known axe murderess of Charing Cross.
Ah, I see you finally caught him in your net, Lady Agatha.
Henry, you mustn't wander over the countryside until you know more of the place.
Nonsense. I stuck to the paths and the light was excellent. I was visiting with Kathy.
I sent Barrymore to go look for you.
It's a pleasure for me, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, but I'm not Holmes. I'm John Watson, MD, a former colleague of Lady Agatha's.
Oh, you'll forgive me.
I take it from the timbre of your accent that you've spent some time in America, Sir Henry.
The States and Canada. I only recently returned. If it hadn't been for my uncle's death, I'd still be there.
But surely you don't believe the balderdash Lady Agatha has been spouting? Beg pardon, my dear.
Watson has never been noted for an abundance of tact. Now, do you share Lady Agatha's doubts as to your uncle's death?
I haven't made up my mind.
Show him the letter.
Letter?
Ah, yes. This arrived one morning at my London hotel.
Words cut from the London Times and gummed to the paper.
Rather an old-fashioned gambit, eh, Holmes?
Arsenic is old-fashioned too, Watson, but it does the trick.
How can you tell it's the Times?
Times print is entirely distinctive. These words could have been taken from nothing else. As you value your life or your reason, keep away from the moor.
See? Nothing supernatural about that.
It may have been sent by someone who was convinced Sir Charles' death was unearthly.
Who?
Someone trying to frighten Sir Henry from Baskerville Hall. No envelope, no stamp.
I found it tucked under the door of my room.
You intend to remain in residence here, Sir Henry?
There is no man on earth or devil in hell that can keep me from staying in my own home, Mr. Holmes.
I take that as a final answer.
Absolutely.
Then you did well to seek me out, Lady Agatha. May I keep this?
Of course.
Anything found near the body?
The stub of Sir Charles's cigar. 2 stubs, actually, and a great deal of cigar ash.
Curious. There is no other claimant on the estate, I presume.
There were 3 brothers. Sir Charles was the eldest. The second died young.
That was my father.
And the third?
Roger Baskerville, a black sheep, fled to Central America and died there of tropical fever.
Then supposing that anything should happen to our young friend here, you'll forgive the unpleasant hypothesis, who would then inherit?
Since Roger died unmarried, the estate would descend to James Desmond.
A distant cousin.
Is there any other kind?
Watson, please.
He's a clergyman in the village of Tracy Coombe.
Quite close, actually.
It's a short drive.
Who profited by Sir Charles' will?
There were many insignificant sums to individuals, and a large number of charities.
He was a generous man.
Yes, yes.
The Barrymores each received £5,000.
He was generous.
Did they know they would receive this sum?
Sir Charles was fond of talking about the provisions of his will.
Unwise.
I hope you won't suspect everyone who profited. After all, Sir Charles left me 10,000. You will take the case, Mr. Holmes? You will take the case?
Out of the question.
You must!
We've been counting on you, Mr. Holmes.
I'm due in Bristol sometime tomorrow. Then I must spend a few days in London.
If it's a question of money,
My professional charges are on a fixed scale. I do not vary them except I remit them altogether.
But Holmes, surely you can let other matters wait.
You know my methods, Watson. I will do my best to settle my prior obligations as quickly as possible. In the meantime, I shall leave Watson here to look out for you, Sir Henry.
whatever you think best.
Please follow his advice. I trust him implicitly. You will communicate anything of interest to me in London.
You can depend on it.
On one point, I must demand complete fidelity.
What is it?
Under no circumstances are you to venture onto the moor at night. I cannot impress the importance of this enough.
Then you do believe the legend?
You understand, Watson?
I do.
There's something in the air that disturbs me.
The air? What's in the air, Mr. Holmes?
The scent of murder, Sir Henry. Murder.
You wanted to see me, Dr. Watson.
Ah, Barrymore. Yes. I don't know how quite to put this.
Sir,
Last night, close to midnight, did you hear the sound of a woman sobbing?
I did not. Perhaps it was the wind. The wind racing on the moor makes all sorts of strange noises.
The sound was most certainly in the house, not in the moor. I thought, perhaps, it might have been Mrs. Barrymore.
We share the same room, Doctor. If my wife had been crying, I would have known.
Could it have been Perkins?
Highly unlikely. Perkins seldom spends the night. She lives with her family on the Grimpenmire Road.
Perhaps you're right. The wind racing on the moor.
I'll be going into the village later this afternoon, Doctor. Is there anything I might get for you?
No, thank you, Barrymore. I'll be going in myself.
Very good, sir.
Oh, one moment, Barrymore.
Sir,
You've been in service here for quite some time.
my father was the caretaker. My family has looked after Baskerville Hall for 4 generations.
In that case, you know the families that inhabit the moor.
I do.
I see the cottage that belongs to Lady Agatha and Baskerville Hall clearly marked, but who lives here, northeast of the Great Rocks?
That would be the house of Mr. Franklin.
Franklin. Elderly gentleman, tolerant with a beard.
You've met him then, Doctor.
Bumped into him at the post office. Disagreeable sort.
His passion is for the British law. Mr. Franklin fights for the mere pleasure of fighting. He'll take up either side of a question just to have his day in court.
I know the sort. And this cottage?
That would be Mr. Stapleton and his sister.
Ah, Sir Henry's friend. What's she like?
Quite lively.
And her brother?
I've only met him on one occasion, on the moor, chasing butterflies.
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 So what we have close by, the homes of the Stapletons, Lady Agatha, and Mr. Franklin.
There are other cottages on the moor, but they're in bad repair, quite unlivable.
You don't mind me saying so, Barrymore. Things are a bit backward in this region.
Sir Charles was doing his best to remedy the situation. That's one of the reasons why his death was such a loss.
Mr. Franklin lives alone.
He does now.
No family.
He has a daughter.
Where's she?
That would be Sir Henry.
What about Franklin's daughter?
Miss Stapleton is with him.
Never mind about Miss Stapleton. I asked you about Franklin's daughter.
Her name was Laura.
Why are you making such a mystery out of it?
Never mind the flowers, I want a bit of lunch.
You look as if you've been enjoying yourself.
Yes, Kathy took me on a tour of the old huts, dotting the moor. The moor is riddled with all sorts of old mine shafts, too. I didn't know that. What is it, Barrymore?
I was wondering if I might have a word with you, Sir Henry.
Certainly. What is it?
I'll go introduce myself to your young friend.
Well?
My wife and I will be happy, Sir Henry, to stay with you until you've made fresh arrangements.
What is that supposed to mean?
Under the new conditions, this house will require considerable staff.
I wish I could understand what you're driving at. What new conditions?
I only meant that Sir Charles led a retired life, and we were able to look after his wants. You would, naturally, wish to have more company over, and so you will need changes in your household.
I'm quite comfortable with you and your wife. Isn't Perkins of some help?
She's a village girl, sir. Not terribly bright, not in service. So few are these days.
What you're really saying is that you and your wife wish to leave.
Only when it is convenient for you, sir.
This is bad news. I'm sorry to begin my life here by breaking an old family connection.
My wife and I were both attached to Sir Charles. His death gave us a shock.
It didn't exactly give me a sense of security, Barrymore.
No, sir, but we fear will never again be easy in our minds at Baskerville Hall.
I won't try to stop you. We'll talk about this later.
Yes, sir.
Is it safe?
Barrymore's left, if that's what you mean.
Come along, Doctor. The coast is clear. We ought to put these in water.
I'll ring for Perkins.
They don't last long. It's a pity.
Yes, it is. The moor needs color.
Aren't they lovely, Doctor?
They are when you hold them, my dear.
Did you hear that, Henry? The doctor knows how to dispense compliments as well as pills.
What was all the mystery with Barrymore?
The Barrymores want to leave.
What?
That's what he tells me.
I thought the Barrymores came with the wallpaper.
So did I.
That will present a problem. Villagers don't like to work on the moor.
One can hardly blame them. I'm grateful Baskerville Hall has modern plumbing, but I'd feel more at home if it had a telephone.
There are no phones on the moor, Doctor. Only the village.
That sense of isolation doesn't trouble you?
Nothing troubles Kathy.
That's not true, especially when the mist is thick. It frightens me.
The moor is a rather odd place to find such a lovely creature.
I quite agree.
One can't help but wonder why such a vital young woman would want to tuck herself away in this corner of England.
It wasn't exactly by choice. My brother and I had a school in the North Country. I'm afraid the fates were against us.
How so?
A serious epidemic broke out in the school. 2 of the lads never recovered.
Bad luck indeed.
Our capital was used up and poor Jack was devastated. He hasn't recovered yet. Still, the moor is perfect for him.
Why?
He has an avid interest in botany and zoology. He keeps his mind occupied and expenses are minimal. We have books, we have our studies, and we have interesting neighbors.
Put this in water, will you, Perkins?
Yes, sir. Oh, no, just bring a vase. I'll arrange them myself.
Yes, miss. It's been seen again, Doctor.
What?
The hound.
We'll talk later, Perkins. Don't bother.
Yes.
Well, wait.
Let me deal with this, Sir Henry.
There's no sense in trying to protect my sensibilities, Doctor. What do you mean, the Hound?
It's only that Dr. Watson asked me to report anything I heard in the village.
Well, what did you hear?
It's not what I heard, Sir Henry. It's what Mr. Blake saw and heard.
Blake?
The greengrocer. The man is a dolt.
Well, what did he see and hear?
He was on his bicycle, and he heard a long, low moan sweep over the moor.
I've heard it once or twice myself.
What?
The bogs make odd noises. It's the mud settling or the water rising or something.
That's not what Mr. Blake said.
My own guess would be a bittern booming.
Good gracious, what's that?
A very rare bird, practically extinct in England now. But all things are possible on the moor. I would not be at all surprised that what Mr. Blake heard was the cry of the last bitterns.
That'll be all, Perkins.
Yes, Sir Henry.
Seems all the servants are in something of a mood.
I was trying to get Barrymore to tell me about Lord Franklin's daughter. He pointedly avoided the subject.
He's not one for gossip.
It's a rather sad situation. She married an artist named Lyons who came sketching on the moor. He proved to be a blackguard and deserted her. Her father refused to have anything to do with her because she married without his consent.
I wonder why Barrymore couldn't have told me as much.
When you've been here a while, you'll realize these people are clannish and protective of one another.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I need to have a word or two with Mrs. Barrymore.
I see us who have come into an inheritance with a vengeance.
I wouldn't pay attention to the village chatter. They're a superstitious lot.
The Hound is the pet story of my family.
That's a bad joke, Henry.
I've heard of the beast ever since I was in the nursery. I never thought of taking it seriously.
You're not thinking of doing so now?
This business with my uncle confuses me. The whole thing seems boiling up in my head, and I can't quite seem to get it clear yet.
There's a sane, rational explanation for everything that's happened. Here, for you. I couldn't resist it.
It's a beauty.
I saw the watch in the jeweler's window. The letter B is engraved on the back.
You're too generous. You won't save money giving gifts to me.
This gift is special.
Then I must secure something extra special for you. I thought I'd find no one on this desolate moor but rustics and eccentrics.
I'm on the moor.
You're no rustic and far from being eccentric.
I'll thank you to keep your attentions for my sister, Sir Henry.
Jack, what's the matter with you?
I'll deal with you later.
Stop
You're
it!
behaving badly, aren't you, Stapleton?
How I'm behaving is my own concern.
What's the matter with you?
Just because you're rich and you have title, you think you can do as you want.
I'm not going to stay here and listen to you.
Rich and powerful. You're all the same.
Abby!
You stay away from her. She's not for you.
It's no concern of yours. I'll see her as often as she remits it.
Then I'll see that she doesn't permit it.
Who do you think you are?
I won't warn you again. Stay away from Khaki.
And I'll thank you to stay away from Baskervilles Hall.
What was all that about?
Stapleton, the man's a lunatic. Came here in a rage when he saw me and Kathy together. My feelings toward his sister are nothing for me to be ashamed of. Why should he object to me?
Perhaps he's on the verge of some sort of breakdown. Remember, he hasn't been well.
He's liable to harm Kathy.
Be careful.
I'm not afraid of Stapleton and his bad temper.
Here's the basin water, Miss... Where's Miss Kathy, Dr. Watson?
Gone.